Howdy folks, Shell Presto DiBaggio here, awesome artist, remarkable writer, and undaunted luminary of my time. Today's going to be a little different because for once I'm actually doing something sort of like a tutorial. A couple folks have asked about how I prep my line art after I have scanned it in. So when you scan in an image, it can look a little rough. Like if you look at the screen here, you can see the paper texture, you can see remnants of where I used colored pencils and it didn't erase perfectly cleanly. There's a little bit of orange here, there's a little bit of blue here and a little pink here. On this one there's a lot of orange and pink. Ignore these trees. These trees are getting replaced, but the rest of the drawing looks good here. Again, here you can see there's a lot of pink because I use pink colored pencil, blue, red, and when you are doing black and white line art, you want it to look clean and crisp. So I've already finished this one, but you can see there's a very sharp contrast between black and white, and there's only black and white and a little bit of shades of gray. I've removed all those extraneous colors. And one of the big parts of that is actually using actions, because every time I scan an image in that's black and white, I end up doing this routine over and over. So I'm going to show you what I do once without using actions, and I'll do it again using actions, and you'll see the time savings involved, but you'll also see all the steps I do. So what are actions? Actions are a menu in Photoshop. If you go into Windows, there's actions. It appears attached to your history bar too. So over here you can see there's default actions, and there's custom actions. And I should actually move my custom actions out of the default actions, because this vignette and frame channel and wood frame and all that are the ones that come automatically with Photoshop. But these ones that say tone photo 1, tone photo 2, Presto color removal, ArtAnon toning, all that stuff, all of that is actions that I've created. And what an action does is you can record the steps that you're taking in Photoshop and then essentially hit the play button on another file and it will do those exact same things. So it's a way to automatically do what you would normally take a lot of long steps to do. Oh, and before we jump into the thick of it, most of these are my artwork. This one is a drawing of Gulliver Jones. You will be able to read a story featuring him. He's a public domain character coming soon on heroicadventurefiction.com. You can see it's a little crazy, what with riding a flying carpet and fighting a huge flying dinosaur. Alright, so what are the steps that I usually end up taking? The first thing that I normally do, now often I'll go in and I'll adjust and try to make sure that things are lined up straight. When I do that, you'll see at the top I leave where lines are. So I will pull down a guideline, and you can see this image is really, really lopsided. And it's important to do this before you remove the colors, because this line here is going to be harder to see if I obviously adjust the brightness and contrast and everything. First I have to make it a separate layer, or else it won't move. The background layer won't move, folks. Then I hit Control T, which is transform. You could also do edit transform if you like, and then this little angle thing up here, if you click in it and press up and down, it will move the angle slightly. You could also put larger images or larger angles in, and you can click and drag as well. If I click off here and I drag, it'll do it a lot, but I'm not looking for that much. I just want it to be parallel to that guideline that I've pulled down from the ruler. So, did that. Going to hit enter to apply it. And boom, we know where our guidelines are. So I'm going to also move the guidelines so I remember where they are. And that would help me to crop when I need to crop. Like I said, I've already done this to this image once before, so I'm not going to do every single step and bore you guys. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Curves. And what the Curves menu does is it allows you to change the brightness and darkness, the contrast of your image. And what you do is you click and drag these points. Now when I drag these along, you're going to see the image changes. So if I drag this to the left, the whites get whiter. And if I drag this bottom point to the right, the dark points get darker. And conveniently, you can see there's a little bit of a layout, pattern laid out here, a curve. So I find that it works really well if you take your right one and move it to where this curve starts to get steep. That tends to make the lines, or the whites, really white for me. And to make my blacks really sharp, if I take it to the point where this is here, where the incline is highest, that gets my blacks really black for me. And obviously this is what I do for black and white line art. I do use the curves for color line art, but there's more of a, how do you put it? There's more of a little bit of art and finesse to it. Now my blacks aren't showing up super black. You can see up here on the Quetzalcoatlus' mouth here, I've got some gray showing, so I'm going to pull it over just a little bit more. The other thing to think about is that the lines will get thicker. You'll lose grays as you go toward the center. So, you know, you could say, oh, Shell, why don't you just pull it to the middle? Well, then my lines get really thin. So you see, I lose a lot of detail. So that's why you sort of have to be careful when you do this part. And that's why I don't like, for artwork, I still like to play with it often and not include that in my steps when I do actions. So what part do I use actions for? I actually use actions most when I'm removing colors because it's really, really tedious. I'm actually going to set up the actions now so that you know how to do it, but as I'm doing it, you will also see how long it takes me to do it the first time. So if you want to create an action, you go into the Actions menu and you hit the Create New Action button. So that's down here. So I'm going to hit that. I'm going to call this tutorial action. Obviously you want to name it something that will let you know what it actually is, but I'm going to delete this afterwards because I already have one of these created. So tutorial action color removal. And I'm going to hit record. And the next step that I do when I'm making pieces is I zoom in a bit more and I'm trying to get rid of all these colors. And this doesn't work as well if you pencil with graphite, just because you're dealing with grays, and the threshold might pick up some of your blacks. What's the threshold? I'm getting there. So, there. The first thing I'm going to do is select the color I want. So I've got the eyedropper tool here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start picking up these colors. If you hold down your mouse and you move around, you can adjust what color you're picking up. So for right now, we'll go with this pink, purple, lavender color. And then I'm going to go into Image, Adjustments, Replace Color. And I am going to bump the lightness all the way up. And you'll see that the color disappears on the image there. So again, I'll pull it back down to where it was. You can see it pop back in. If I pull it all the way to the right, then you can see it disappear. The fuzziness is the part that's interesting. So the fuzziness adjusts how much, how close it'll not only pick up that color, but colors similar to it. Colors a little lighter, colors a little darker, based on the fuzziness. So this is the dangerous part. If you bump the fuzziness up, all the way, you'll get all of the color, but you'll also start picking up the blacks. And this is why we're using this for gray pencils doesn't work that well, but using it for color pencils works fantastically. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. You'll see the lines actually start to get thinner on the entire piece, just as the same way if I had made it too bright. So obviously I don't want that to happen, and if I bump the fuzziness all the way down, none of that purple goes away. So I want to get my fuzziness right in the middle here, not have it affect, and it's not always going to be the middle. You need to play with it so that you get the color you want, but you don't affect the line width. And then I'm going to hit OK. So as you can see, that looks better already. So next I'm going to go in and pick another color. And I'm getting a light blue. Going to go into Image. Going to go down to Adjustments, Replace Color again. And I'm going to bump that lightness all the way up. And see, I lost a little bit of my grays there. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to bump the fuzziness down until it's only picking up those blues. And that's where that's at. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get all the offending colors out of my piece. So I'm going to do that for the blue. And I'm going to bump up the fuzziness on that. And I'm going to come down here and grab this pink. And as you can see, this is a really tedious process to do for all of your pieces. The part that's staying white is the part that it's grabbing. So that's good to know in this little box here, in the preview box. And then I go through and I do all of that over and over again until I get all the color out. You say, Presto, that's really tedious. Well, that's why we're using actions. So you can see I can do this over and over and over again. And then when I'm done that, because remember I'm setting up actions, I hit stop. And then I have this action sitting here. So the nice thing about this action is that the next time I want to go do a piece, well, we'll use this one even though this is not the exact, I'll do it both ways, is what I'm trying to say. So, alright, we're going to tone this You can see I've went into the curves menu again. I've made my darks darker and my lights lighter. I hit OK. And you can see I've got all the colors, and they are really, really, really obnoxious and bright. So, what do I do? Well, to use the one we just created, you just select it, and then you hit play. And it's going to take a minute, but you can see it's scrolling down and going through all of that, and boom, a lot of those colors disappeared. And that's just the one we created before, which is not comprehensive. So I'm going to pop in, I'm going to actually undo that. So I'm going to go into my history menu here. If your history menu isn't showing up, you can go into up here, window history. So I'm going to go back to open, or actually back to curves. The history menu is great because you can click to different parts and undo. So I'm going to go to curves, and I'm going to go to my normal action. As you can see, my thing is super long because I have all my colored pencil colors in there. So this is my regular Presto color removal, and if I hit play on this, you're going to see it's going to do a way better job of taking out all those colors. While we're watching the steps run through, I'll add in that this image is from our upcoming Martian War Chronicles book, Days of Wrath. It's the sequel to Martian War Chronicles Population of Loss, which you can read right now on heroicadventurefiction.com. These two characters are mourning their loss after a tripod attack. Okay, now this looks really clean. So I didn't use, I don't often use orange, but I had so much going on in this piece that I ended up using more orange. So what do you do if that happens? You can add to an action. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of my action. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click record again. Okay, so now I can get my color picker, and I can pick up that orange that was a little obnoxious and still showing up. And I'm going to go adjustments, replace color, and I'm going to bump the lightness up to turn that white. I'm going to adjust the fuzziness until I lose the orange but don't lose any details. Going to hit OK. I think I still see a couple areas where the orange is showing up. And then the next time that I run this action, that color will come out too. So that saved me a ton of steps. And that's too fuzzy. Okay. Now, I use 1,000,002 colored pencils. My buddy ArtAnon, who also does work for the Ascension Epoch, does not use all those colors. I'm going to stop that. So, and he's pretty consistent with his work too. So I actually have it set up to tone his work as well. And then I adjust it if it needs adjusting afterward. So I have one set up to do the curves, make his adjust the contrast on his, which adjusts the contrast and the the darkness of the darks, the whiteness of the whites. And then I have the replace blues here. Sometimes he uses red pencils, and I have it set up to do that as well. So this is one of ArtAnon's pieces, and I'm just going to hit play on my actions here. You can see that already looks a ton better. I'm going to run the second one, see if it removes some more of the blue. It might not, but this is still saving me a lot of steps. Oh, and if it seems like it's running slow for me, that's also because I'm running screen cap software and movie making software in the background. So usually doesn't take this long, but I'm kind of grinding the gears on my computer because of this. Okay, so it took away a lot of... Oh, there we go. It took away a lot more of the blue. Only the darkest blue is there. I am still going to have to adjust the curves a little bit on this one. You can see it missed the giant curve here. So we're going to pull that in. All right. Looks like a good spot. Go in, take out the darkest one. I'm going to add to this so that the next time I have to tone ArtAnon's work, I don't have to do this again. And then the last thing that I usually do when I'm doing work like this is sometimes I feel like the darks aren't dark enough, but I don't want to adjust any more in curves because that can make the edges of the lines very stark. I like I don't want to say a tiny bit of feathering, but I don't quite know how else to say it. I don't like the hard, jagged bitmap look. So sometimes I create another layer from background. And then I duplicate that layer. And then what I will do is I will set that upper layer to multiply. What multiply does is it makes the layer see-through. But in doing so, it also can double up the layer. So it lays one layer over top of the other layer, and as you can see, this looks significantly darker. Too dark, I think, but that's all right, because the next thing that I do, and I'll do that one more time, this is the layer blending mode. So if I make it normal, you can see it's just another copy of the layer. But if I make it multiply, it'll make everything darker. I can then change the opacity over here. And what I do is I just pull it down until it makes the lines as crisp, a little more crisp. So sometimes you always need to eyeball it. 20, I usually do like 30 or 50. And I do this for my own artwork a lot too. And then you can see if I turn it off how it looks. If I turn it back on, it gets a little darker and crisper. Maybe we want a little darker still. Alright, so let's see here. Alright, yep, I think that looks good. You can especially see if you look down in this area where the black fills are. It gets much, much darker, which I think looks much better. Alright folks, I hope that was helpful. I hope that it allows you to do some fine-tuning on your art. If you have actions in your programs or something similar to it, I hope you use it to make your workflow faster and easier. And if you and even if you don't have it, I hope that maybe you picked up a trick or two to help enhance your art when you're prepping it after scanning it. I will say also that when I do scan, I personally scan at 600 dpi. If you're doing print, you want to scan at least 300 dpi. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them, and I'll do my best to get back to you, or maybe it'll be a topic for another video. Also, if you think my stuff looks cool, please consider checking out heroicadventurefiction.com. You can read my and my husband's stories there and check out some of my artwork. You can also learn about my books, which are available for purchase on Amazon at ascensionepoch.com. Besides that, if this video was helpful or you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it on social media. And do like and leave a comment because that helps a ton. And yeah, that's it, folks. I hope you have an awesome day. I hope this was helpful. Shell Presto DiBaggio, over and out. It finally happened. I caved and bought the 96 set of Arteza Real brush pens. No good can come of this. No, wait, tons of good can come of this. Alright, folks. Presto, over and out.
Farewell and adieu to you, fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu to you, ladies of Spain.